Yeah. What's up? Okay. All right, we're officially on now.
Okay. Stephen, Greg, and Simba.
That's right. This is the One Piece Podcast, episode 816 for the week of Monday, May 6th, 2024. It is Golden Week, or at least it was Golden Week, I think, in Japan, which means Shonen Jump was off. But you are in good hands because it is SGS week on the One Piece Podcast. I am Steven. Simba is over in the corner, and metaphorically sandwiched between us is my good friend Greg.
Hey, good to be back. It has been it's been quite some time since we've done the SGS, so sorry about that. I had to take a little bit of a sabbatical. Just a couple things hitting the fan all at once. Some changes at work, and just a lot of stuff going on in life. Some fun stuff. I talked to the team, and I was like, "Hey guys, can I kindly take a little bit of a break from SGS, especially with Oda going on consecutive breaks while all this is going on?" And they were like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So I was like, "Great, then I'll be back on this day." And then Zach was like, "Cool, then we'll see you on this day." And I was like, "Wait a minute, not that day, the other day." And then he was like, "Oh, okay, well, how about this day?" And I was like, "Cool, we'll do that day." And I was like, "All right, great, so we'll do that day." And then I was like, "Wait a minute, I can't do that day, I can do this day." And they're like, "All right, then we'll do that." Anyway, the point is, I'm here, Steven's here, Simba's here, the SGS is back.
Yeah. Actually, before now, I was counting it up, and I believe there have been 7 chapters in between now and the last time we did this, which is a lot, but also not a lot considering how much time has passed. As you mentioned, there have been lots of breaks and whatnot. And but I do want to before we get into stuff, I do want to ask you a little bit about your vacation, because you teased this on the podcast as well, that like we had found out that we were taking vacations in the same place, yes, unbeknownst to each other. I'm very curious to hear your experience.
Can we do the super annoying thing to all the fans that they absolutely, I'm sure they want to hear the two guys, the two 40-year-olds talking about their vacation to a Disney resort?
Just for a few minutes. Just humor us for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Originally we were going to be staying at the same resort in Hawaii. Not even a week, but like days apart.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And then we realized that, oh, wait a minute, you can't schedule a week-long vacation in 2 months. So we were like, all right, in that case, we'll postpone. So we postponed. So Stephen warmed it up for me, and I went there with my wife and my parents last week, and it was my first time in Hawaii, first time at the resort there, and I gotta say, the lazy river is probably the most fun I've had. That was just that was just like you go around and you're just like, all right, let's do that again, because that was really fun and relaxing. And I don't know about your timing, but you mentioned Golden Week earlier, and yes, it was the string of holidays called Golden Week in Japan, where it's not perfectly consecutive holidays, but it is a bunch of them all stacked together at once.
Right.
And or Jenga together at once. And I don't know what your experience was like, but I didn't feel like I left Japan. I literally could throw a stone and hit a Japanese person from anywhere that I was.
Right.
Every conversation happening around us was in Japanese. Uh,
Wow.
the signage, and I'm sure you noticed this as well, but like the signage is, I'm used to, like English, Spanish from where I'm from in the States.
Hmm.
This was English, Japanese everywhere.
Right.
And it
Right.
was really surreal as my first time back in not the contiguous states, but the States, um,
Hmm.
well, since Corona.
Right.
So
Right.
a very weird experience.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that the Golden Week had an effect on that, but that is, not to that extent, but that is kind of typical. I think if you're doing tourist stuff in Hawaii, for sure, there will be lots of Japanese tourists as well.
I was amazed. I was just like, well, I think I need a do-over. Like I never left Japan.
Hmm.
Um, but so okay, so here's an anecdote. So like I said, four adults. So I was like, all right, let's get a little bit of a bigger car, rent a car, right?
Hmm.
So I go to the rental place in Japan, and they're like, all right, you can get this car, this car, this car. And I was like, I drove a minivan in the States, so let's get a town and country minivan. It'd be a nice, easy. It's easy to see around. It's nice
Hmm.
and windowy, so I get plenty of viewing. It's not overly big, and it should give me some nice time to adjust to driving the road on the opposite side. So I reserve the minivan. We get there. We wait in the rent-a-car line for probably an hour and a half. And first
Oh
world
boy.
problems, I know, but like
Yeah.
after the flight,
Hmm.
it's just like, oh my God, I need to get on with this and on with my day because I'm just tired
Hmm.
and jet lagged and everything. And at the counter at the first place, the guy's like, "Hey, so would you like to upgrade to another vehicle?" And I was like, "No, no, no, I'm fine. I'll take the minivan." And he's like, "All right, okay. Well, then head downstairs and I'll take care of you." We head downstairs, wait again after I pass in the thing, waiting, waiting, waiting. Another hour goes by, just waiting down in the carpool.
Jeez.
And finally, I get called, Greg, okay, yeah. And like, you want an expedition? And at this point, I'm half insane and out of
Hmm.
my mind and forgetting what an expedition even is. I probably would have took a tuk tuk if they gave it to me at this point. So
Yeah.
um so I was just like, yeah, sure, fine, good, whatever, cool. And we walk over and there is this vehicle. I don't know if the vehicle is even the appropriate term. There is this monolith of
Hmm.
of a with four wheels on it that I think I probably could have canceled the hotel reservations and we could have just stayed inside that thing for the week. So I had to drive basically a tank. If you're not familiar with an expedition, it's a massive
Hmm. SUV.
SUV, that is unnecessarily large. And so for the first time driving on the opposite side of the road in 5 years, um, unsure of myself,
Hmm.
it's incredibly high up, so that getting your positioning on the line, the center line, and whatnot is super hard. I had to drive that out of the airport immediately onto a highway
Right.
to the resort, and that was just and then park the freaking thing. That made the entire. By the end of the whole thing, I needed a vacation from the vacation kind of
Hmm.
deal.
Oh boy.
Um, certainly an expedition in and of itself.
Uh
Um, ugh. Other than that, it was great.
huh. Awesome. Yeah. The speaking of the lazy river, did you go on the water slides?
I went on the right one, the tube one. You need the inner
Hmm.
tube for it, or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, one was single person, and then the other one was
Yes,
you had to have the two in the
yes,
big one.
yep. That's the one I went on.
Wow.
Yeah. This so well. I don't know. Is the single person one? Could you do that with a tube? Because nobody. I started going up with a tube one time and like, no, 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 right side, right side, and I was like, oh, okay. Could you do the single one with a single tube?
I guess you're right. That was not. That's right. That one you didn't use a tube. You
Yeah,
you could only go down, yeah, as yourself.
yeah.
Um,
I didn't do that one. I did the tube
okay.
one. Yeah.
They were both very fun, and we went on them several times, and then like I think by the second or the third day or something, we were like, wait a second, where are all the people? Like nobody's here. It's like, oh no,
Oh.
sorry. The slides and the lazy river are off limits now due to due to biohazard, and that's when it was like, oh yes, that's right, we are surrounded by hundreds, if not thousands, of small children, and things happen in the water. That yeah, it's a little reminder.
Old Scotty on that one. That's that's not fun. Gross.
Yeah.
Okay. But luckily there's a whole ocean in front of you, and
yes,
and the other pools as well. So
mm-hmm.
that's cool. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you get to meet any characters or make the ears?
We did. We did get some. My wife is a big Donald Duck fan. She loves the Three Caballeros, so any of the birds. And so I think yes, we did get pictures with Donald, and then we did have it was a family grouping, and there was one small toddler with us, and so we did do some. I think what is it, the breakfast, the character breakfast sort of thing, which was a little bit of an ordeal, but we all had fun.
Good. I hope you had some time to relax there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it certainly is beautiful.
It is beautiful, and the best thing. So I have to ask this because this is the one other thing that I'm curious about. Right. Is did you at any point leave the resort, walk down to the light, and cross it to go to the gigantic convenience store on the other side?
Oh, fuck yeah, I did. And like every day. Oh
yes.
My God. That was like, that made the vacation. I could have just vacationed in the convenience store. That was like, America, here it is.
So because I didn't know, because, obviously Japan has a reputation for having very good convenience stores. And those ones, they called that one the Island Country Market, but I think it's ABC store.
It's actually ABC Mart. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is like, I'm not sure if they have those in the non-touristy areas, but the places where I've been in Hawaii, they're always there, and they're always enormous, and they have everything, which is a godsend because the stuff that they have on the resort is pretty minuscule in comparison.
It is. I brought nothing with me in terms of toiletries because I'm used to the business hotels over here where they're like, here's everything you'd need. And I was just like, oh, sure, they'll have toothbrushes and razors and so yeah, we just went there, and I stocked up too. I bought them out of medium bristle toothbrushes, so I'm good for the next couple of years over here in Japan, where they don't like to brush teeth.
Yeah, there was one night where all of a sudden I forget if it was like a cough or a sore throat or something, and I was like, I need some Halls. I need a cough drop. And they closed, I think they closed that store at, I want to say, let's just say it was like at 11:30 or something. And it was like 11 o'clock or 11:05. And I'm like, oh man, I wish we had brought some. Like, there's no way this place is open. And then, we look on the phone. Oh, well, it's open for the next like 25 minutes. And I'm thinking in like restaurant time, I'm like, oh no, that's too late. Like, they're closing down already. Like, I can't go down there. And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, God damn it, I need these cough drops. And so there I am, like in my flip flops, like running down the sidewalk, and it's 11 o'clock. So there's no cars on the road. So I just run across the light and get over there. And yeah, they're totally open. It's totally cool. Get my cough drops. And yeah, it really felt like, civilization. We are here.
Oh, okay. Well, since you brought that up, I have to ask one thing then. Because all I did basically was rent a hotel room and eat. I ate and slept the entire thing. That was basically the entire trip.
Yeah.
Did you try either at the market there or somewhere else? They have them at a couple places. Did you try what do they call it? I think like Uncle's ice cream sandwiches.
No.
Those things freaking ruled. Like, I love Toll House ice cream sandwiches. They come in the yellow wrap.
Yeah.
Those things are amazing, and I was bummed out that like they probably weren't going to have them. I didn't expect them at all, and they were totally at the convenience store. I was like, "That's amazing!" And then I saw that they had local ones, and I was just like, "Yeah, let's try the local ones." Oh my God! If you do go back to Hawaii, I don't think they're limited to Oahu, but Please try them. And if you're listening and you're there, thank you for them because they rule. The Snickerdoodle vanilla ice cream thing was just mwah.
Nice. Yeah, I we could go on and on about the food, I'm sure, but we do have. I think we've done enough indulging in our vacation talk.
What even is a One Piece?
We've extracted our toll from the audience here. So I was thinking, since I mentioned before, we have many chapters, but we also have a bunch of questions, and I think it's probably easier to just go through the questions, and they'll probably cover most of the topics that we would have discussed anyways.
Yeah.
So let's just do a pure SGS question and answer. Why don't we take a quick ad break and let's get into some questions. All right, time for SGS. So I feel like, it's been several months, so we might as well, refresh people's memory. This is kind of our little version of the SBS where primarily the idea is people send us in their questions and their comments and whatnot. And hopefully in our vast expertise, we have some kind of answer for them. And we'll start with our Discord, our Dispiece. This is our section for patrons, people who are on the One Piece Podcast Patreon. You have a special channel on our Discord to ask your SGS questions. And I believe our first one here, this one I think was like maybe a day too late for the last time we recorded. So better late than never. 3 months later. Professional Poyo says, "Hello SGS. I have finally decided to reread One Piece in its entirety since my first reading all the way back in 2020.
Nice.
You were a fan. Steven mentioning his reread, which I have been doing this year, made me wonder how often or how many times have you two reread One Piece from beginning to end? Does the sheer length get easier with each reread? I personally have found enjoying reading at my own leisure. The pressure to catch up and get to the good parts is no longer hovering over me."
Wow.
So, yeah.
This I don't you and me, I get a feeling like we're gonna have a bit of a surprising answer for this. I don't know if you wanna do this one first or
yeah, I guess
because I guess you're rereading it right now.
Yeah, this is the second time. So the Professional Poyo mentioned reading it all the way back in 2020. 2020, I did. That was one of my pandemic things. I had been starting a reread in the prior year, and it was just sort of on my own time, like they mentioned, where I was a couple chapters every now and then. But then I would just forget about it for a few weeks or a month or whatever. And so it was the lockdown, it was the pandemic stuff where I was like, you know what, I just need to set a standard. Every day I have to read a certain amount. I settled on 3 chapters, which covered that was about a year-long process then at that point. And I made it all the way up to the current material, which at the time I think we were still in Onigashima. They were in the middle of the fighting. And this year I'm doing it again. I think that's probably, if you define this as start at the beginning and read all the way to where we are now, I think that is this is the second time I have reread the series. What about you, Greg?
I have read, not reread, but I have read One Piece from start to finish, exactly as you just defined so well. 1.5 times.
Yeah.
The first being obviously reading through it, and then the 0.5 was over 10 years ago for the TV show for Hokotate, for the quiz show
right
in Japan. I got up to somewhere around just before Enies Lobby. I got to like Water 7. And back then the series was significantly shorter.
Yes, it was.
So it was exactly halfway through at the time. And that's it. I think there's a lot of like, and I guess this is interesting because it's kind of spilled over into foreign culture now. Whereas I've read the series this many times. Like back when I did the TV show, like that was a thing in Japan. Like I've read the series 10 times, or I've read the series this, X number of times. They're like, how many times have you read it? And I was like, once. like I'll go back and reread, specific parts, or I'll search for things thousands of times, especially when I used to check for like errors and stuff. But in terms of, reading through it, uninterrupted, start to finish, uninterrupted meaning obviously like, not, great periods of time between it. Just 1.5, that's it. And the rest of it is either, I guess, memorizing when certain events happen and going back and just, picking that up and reading through it again, or, well, basically just that. Just kind of mapping it out. Like my wife is always like, she'll be like, wait, when did this happen? Because Haruka, she reads the series as a casual fan. Like she doesn't retain a lot. Like every time a new volume comes out, she has to reread the previous volume to kind of remind herself of what happened. And she'd be like, wait, what did they mean by this? And I'll run over to the shelf and pull it out and be like, right here. And she's like, how the hell do you do that? I was like, you just, you retain this stuff where these certain things happen. One of the hardest things for me to remember, and I don't know, this is a bit of a tangent as usual, but is the placement of it is where Vivi gets slapped by Wapple. And for hashtag reasons, I had to recheck that recently for something. And I just cannot remember. I know it occurs during it's a flashback that occurs within a flashback. And those are just the absolute worst to try to find. And that one is always a pain to get through. Luckily, it's in one volume. There are some of these things where like the flashbacks are through multiple volumes. So you'll have flashback within a flashback in multiple volumes, which means you're tearing volumes out looking for exactly where it is. But like that's one that always sticks with me because I can never remember exactly where it occurs, and I always flip past it. That's probably my worst.
Yeah, I think we're definitely very imbalanced on the side of, yes, we reread individual chapters or sections lots of times. In fact, I was thinking about this, like how many times, just on a weekly basis, how many times I go through a chapter, and that would be, so I read it when I first get it, then I'm more or less reading it as I translate it for the first time. That obviously takes much longer. And then I have a revision pass where I go over it again and, reconsider any lines. So that's 3 times right there. Usually I won't think about it again, or I just kind of push it out of my mind until the chapter is out. And then I'll read it again, in the English with the text all there and everything. And usually I'm on the podcast, so we kind of read it again for the manga recap. And so there's 5. And then when the volume comes out, then I'm, do another, pass for errors or changes or things that I want to change or whatnot. So at a minimum there's 6 times for each chapter. And that's not counting, checking back on things or reading for pleasure or what have you. So,
and that's every week. So
yes,
in 2 chapters, you've read a chapter 12 times, not a given chapter, but I mean, you've read essentially 12 chapters.
12
you've read
chapters,
a volume of material for every 2 chapters.
Right.
Yeah. I used to do, and I probably talked about this in the podcast eons ago, but I used to do 3 passes per chapter. I used to do 1 with my grilled cheese sandwich. This is back when I was just like, I hope Oda will publish my picture in the in the Usopp Gallery someday. This is like back in those days, but like I used to do the grilled cheese sandwich read, which is just like pure enjoyment. Like, don't bother me. I'm in my room. Nobody come in and just I'm in this. I'm in One Piece right now. Like, this is what I worked all week for.
Right.
There was that read, and then open up the doors, come back to society, and then I'll go through it and check the meanings of things and think about like, is this related to anything that was said in the past? Are there any sort of foreshadowings going on here? Do I understand this sentence properly? Reading in Japanese in Jump. And then the third is looking for Easter eggs and secrets in the artwork. And that's when I would go through with like a camera and take pictures, download them to the computer, and then zoom in, all that sorts of nerdy stuff that's super fun for me. Mm-hmm. And that was it was about three reads per chapter back in the day. Now it's unfortunately it's not that many. Maybe 2 reads per chapter. Mm-hmm. One is the obviously initial read through, and then the next one would be like, now what the hell do I want to write about?
Right, the professional side of it.
Yeah. And that's, well, you know what? No, it is 3 because when it does come out, I read it with my buddies at work, or I did at least. Like there I said, we've had some work change ups, so I guess that's going to go back down to 2 now. But yeah, about 2. So, yeah, sorry if that seems like underwhelmingly low, but 1.5 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would say, does the sheer length get easier with each you read? No, it gets harder, obviously. But yeah, the other thing too is I the last time I reread it, I was treating it sort of like, yeah, it's like a fun sort of daily treat, but also it was a way for me to try to kind of retain some more knowledge of some of the things. There's always those little minor plot threads where you're like, wait, what's happening with this character now? Like, what's like what happened with Moria, and like who's after their arc and things like that. I tend to lose little details that just get brought up once and then you don't hear about them again. And so I was reading it carefully. I think this time I'm a little more okay with just kind of breezing through some of the dialogue in spots where I'm like, yeah, I just did this a few years ago, so I don't feel like I need to focus on every little word in the Japanese.
It is interesting though to go back and read, Shoki Luffy like early on, because he's pretty not intense, gruff, straightforward, blunt. And the go-to is obviously when he would say stuff like, "I'll kill you." Like obviously he doesn't say anything like that anymore. Right. But he was pretty tough, and that they preserved that in the live action. Mm-hmm. And what was funny to listen to is are you familiar with Brandon Sanderson? I'm sure you've heard the name at this point.
Yes, yeah. I've never read any of his books. I think he burst onto the fantasy novel scene after I had kind of moved on to reading manga most of the time. Mm-hmm. But I'm of course familiar with him as a writer.
So I'm not sure if you knew this or not. Not like it's super important, but like he watched the series and he actually did a talk on it with his buddy. I think two episodes.
Oh right, the Netflix one.
Yes, yeah. He watched the Netflix live action series and discussed it with a friend of his. And it's kind of fun. He limited himself to only watching the Netflix series. He's not read the manga. He's not seen the anime. Right. And a lot of his observations were almost gut-bustingly funny to listen to, just like knowing where he's coming from. And he is a brilliant man. He can world build, I would say, better than Oda, because which is a big thing to say, I know, I'm sure, but like Oda built this amazing world. Brandon Sanderson has built interconnected multiple worlds. and all of them meld together, and we're, but that's waxing too much a little bit. But like, the point is, this dude knows his stuff, and I know where he's coming from in like some, not criticizing, but saying like, I think that I see what the author is doing here and how he's making this character. And one of the things he says is like, well, I can see that, he's quite gruff, or he's quite, he has a mean streak to him. He didn't say mean streak, but something like that. It's like when he hits Kobe, right. He was like, I was like, wow. I was like, I didn't know that. And I guess that's going to be, part of his character arc to change that. And I was just like, no, that's Luffy from start to finish. But yeah, some of the early stuff that he does say is a little bit more tough. But luckily we have Oda to guide us and keep Luffy basically unchanged from the start, largely unchanged.
Yes. Yeah, if we don't get into how he draws Luffy, which is a different topic. Yeah. But all right, there we go. One question down. Let's see what we got next. All right, this one I think is probably a quicker one. Underwater Reverse Eye Patch says, SGS. Who would be the best at Minecraft out of all the Straw Hats? The archaeologist Robin, the builder Frankie, or the all-around artist Usopp? Have you ever touched Minecraft? I'll ask that first.
I have never touched Minecraft. I have seen Minecraft played by a person. I have seen creations in Minecraft, and I watch Carl Jobst take down Minecraft cheaters. But let's see. From my limited knowledge of Minecraft, because I think that's a very detailed question. Like it's not just as simple as like who builds the best,
right?
Because I know there's a large exploration way of it as well, right? But I would have to say he's just so fast that Frankie would probably trounce everybody. And the reason I say it is I go back to Thriller Bark, where he's making that bridge like out of seemingly nothing in the air. If you gave that man actual materials and the ability to retain them, I shudder to think what he could build.
Yeah, that was a total Minecraft move, like before there was Minecraft. That bridge. My pithy answer would be, Chopper is the youngest of the crew, so I feel like he would be the best at Minecraft. just for the generational aspect alone. All right, that was a fun one. Let's see, Felix Cutler. This one, this came back from early April, so I think this was maybe around the time of the 3-week break that Oda took. Okay. So Felix says, not sure when the next SGS will be because Greg is busy with something. I've read Babel, Babel. I'm not sure if this is a book or a series or something. At Babel, and it has the theme of translation. And since both of you guys are translators, my question to you is, how do you juggle translating the tone of Japanese to English? What's your approach to nuances and dialects in a text? Are they worth being translated, or would that disturb the flow of the text? Is it sometimes better to ignore? Can you guys think of any translation which elevated the original?
Well, it's been a fun One Piece podcast, but now we are now the translation podcast for the remainder of this episode, because that is a big question.
That is a huge question, yeah. I think the very first thing that I would point out is, since we are talking about a manga and our Greg has worked on manga before. I work on manga and light novels as well, so I do a bit of prose translation as well. And so it really also depends on the medium. It's like what you are translating and what the intended audience is. And so I think the fact that we are talking about manga, which is very much an entertainment product, and is often, you often approach it with the philosophy of like, this should be entertaining, and if it's not entertaining, or if there's something about the process that you feel like you're leaving something on the table, maybe where like your audience may not understand this, that maybe that's a sign to try to adjust something, because it should be entertaining. And so I think that informs a lot of those decisions of like, is this living up to the liveliness and the fun of the original product? I'm not sure if you have any thoughts about that.
This is such a loaded question because of the timing of it. I'm not sure if you're aware, Stephen, because I know you keep a lower profile on Twitter these days, but there is a war currently going on between people who don't want localizers and people who want localizers, which is a weird war to have in the first place, because if you don't have a localizer, then like 90, maybe 8% of the fans won't be able to read it. So I don't know what like the whole deal is. But the point is, they are justified in the fact that like localizations are taking on a certain tone, and that is a problem when that tone doesn't exist in the Japanese,
right?
In the original. And that is a problem. I completely agree with that. And it is something that is happening, and I see more and more. The politics or the morals or the ethics of whatever those quote-unquote messages are, I completely stay out of that because I don't care. The point is it in the original? And this is what you have to think about when you think about the audience. When I think about the audience, like I did... for example, I did the first 5 volumes, or first 5 collected volumes of The Adventures of Dai.
Yeah.
And that's a series from the late 80s and early 90s. When going through that, I made a strong effort to only use any terminology, and if any slang, terms that would have been used at that time. Same thing for the Toriyama collection. I already talked about this in the past, how I went to great lengths to try and translate a joke that was using comedians from that time abroad, because it was referencing a Japanese troupe of comedians. And it eventually got cut by the editor anyway, so, oh well.
Right.
But that's why I will always be at odds with editors, because when I think about the audience, I'm not trying to think who is reading it now. And that is a dangerous way to think, because you need to sell things now, but it also the purest way. I am not going to, quote unquote, update something. I do not want to use modern slang unless modern slang is being used. And if modern slang is being used at the time, well, then what was the time of publication? And I do try to stay faithful to that. But there are translators for, and maybe less manga, because I don't know manga. I really don't know. I don't read that many.
I know what you're talking about, and I feel like the epicenter of this is kind of video games related, which
precisely
definitely involves its own kind of vitriol involved. But I do think that yes, it is something that does apply to. Particularly, in the context of Japanese media, it crosses those barriers to manga, to anime, stuff like that.
Stephen, I have tapped out no fewer than 3 threads that I've gone back and deleted on this very topic. Because I feel very strongly about it, and I support both. I'm a translator. I do translation work. I want to be a translator. It's super fun. But at the same time, there are things going on that are just unacceptable. It's unprofessional. In series that I love, even. And my big thing is Final Fantasy VII, the remake Rebirth series. There are character changes. Entire characters change and meanings are lost. Simply because they either want to use modern slang, or they want to sound flowery and write a fanfic. I mean, some of these are just... And a lot of the major issues that you'll see are from small series that, unfortunately, it doesn't sound good to put... It's just a small series. It doesn't matter. But like, there are so many people, which means there are so many translators out there, that you can't quality control all of them that well.
Right.
But it is an issue, and when you see it start to crop up in games like Final Fantasy, then it gets to be a little bit like, ooh, have we flown too close to the sun with our translations or localizations here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Of course, when you do have something like that where there is a lot of discourse and there's a lot of, I guess, attention being paid to, picking apart certain examples, I do feel like, yeah, you kind of, you just kind of have to keep your head down at some point and just kind of not draw too much attention to yourself. But it's even those examples that you bring up, there is still some room for subjectivity, like for people to say, because I've seen stuff where where when we're not talking about like changing the meaning of things, but even just like the tone of characters speaking or whatever. I've seen examples where people didn't like lines of dialogue that I translated in One Piece, and they're
you don't say.
They're yeah. Imagine that. But the reasoning was, oh well, this doesn't sound like this character, and in that case, almost invariably, it is someone who their only basis for understanding the character is in their own language, and that doesn't mean that you should blindly trust whatever you read on the page, but it does mean that you're coming from a deficit of information where you don't know how the author wrote it. And one of my things that I kind of feel strongly about when it comes to presenting the material is, obviously I don't want I never go into anything intending to do a bad job or to give less than an excellent effort into it. But sometimes, like it happens. Sometimes a Japanese writer underwrites something. They deliver something that is underbaked. It's not very well thought out. It's just kind of getting you from point A to point B. And they kind of flub a line, or they bend the characteristics of the character speaking in order to put this, to get this dialogue in there. And I don't necessarily want to, I don't consider it my responsibility to fix up mistakes, because that's an easy thing to overreach. And so sometimes, I look at someone saying like, well, this translation is bad because this doesn't sound like the character. And I'm kind of like, I can see where you're coming from, but also have you considered that like that's kind of just what the author did, like that it's maybe not me so much that you have the problem with, but possibly the writer itself. But that's not something that you can really expect people to understand or to take into account, because it's so nuanced and it requires so much knowledge of both languages to begin with, that anyone who's already in that position probably would not be commenting about it anyways. So there's lots of things that go into the decision making process.
It is an interesting discourse. I can at least say that. I do hope that everyone wins in the end, because both sides deserve to get a little bit from the other. And a little give and take would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody can actually come out of it winning if people kind of chill out and consider what's going on in the process involved in translation and localization. It's not a simple thing from either side. So,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is a very broad question, but we do have a not really a follow up, but Felix did prior to this week. So this is a more a recent, and this is a One Piece question. It's been a while since the last SGS. So how was the break, guys? What have you been up to? Going to Hawaii. Sinking or rising sea levels is not something I had on my bingo card for 2024. What's your favorite part of the Egghead arc so far, and what do you guys expect to see next? Is it Elbaf, or is the crew escaping via the moon, and Enel makes his way back into the story?
Shall I go first, or?
Yeah, go.
I don't mind. Okay. All
I'm
right.
curious.
My favorite part of Egghead was, without question, the murder mystery. Who done it?
Right.
Who is the betrayer? That was super duper fun. I liked his red herring. It felt earned. I enjoyed the reveal, the process, everything that went along with it. I really did enjoy that. If he sticks the landing and like somebody like Shaka, quote unquote, stays dead, which is pretty hard for something that is built and can be mechanical. I mean, he can easily bring that back. But if that character actually stays off the character list, then wow, I'm shocked and amazed at that. And it'll be stronger for that. So far, that's my favorite part of Egghead. I think there was a second part to it, and I'm forgetting it.
What do you expect?
Where
to
we're
see
going next?
Yes.
Yeah. Elbaf, 100%. Elbaf.
Yeah.
He's too dedicated. His message from the end of the year, and just his dedication to the storyline at this point. Also, what it means for some of the other characters, such as Mom and whatnot, and their relation to the main characters in various ways. And I have written on this very topic to great extent, and by the time it comes out, it will no doubt be ancient history. But this is part of my. I finish off that big "How much longer is One Piece" writing with a large discussion on that very topic.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a good. The murder mystery was a good fun thing. I think my answer, in a more broad sense, which I realize also encompasses like half the cast, is just Vegapunk in general. I think has been my favorite part of the Egghead arc. We were just I think me and Zach on, it might have been the last chapter, in our recap, were discussing how, leading up to Vegapunk, he was such a mysterious figure who was often mentioned, and it's just like, when are we going to see this guy? When are we going to see this guy? And there was a lot of questioning, and I had I kind of had a little hand wringing over, like, what is his depiction going to be like? Like, is he going to be a good guy? Because going into it, it sounded like there were good and bad things associated with him, like that he was developing like these weapons and things, the pacifistas, stuff that was like kind of bad news for the Straw Hats and possibly for the rest of the world too. And at the same time, all of these cool scientific advancements and things. And it was just like, what is this guy's deal? And I'd always hoped that he was going to be kind of a complicated character. And I feel like that has absolutely, been what we got, is a guy who is driven by his desire for knowledge. And he does have, he does have goals and aspirations and things which are very much, for the betterment of humanity as a whole, but is still kind of, at the whims of the relationship with the government and the ways in which his work is taken and manipulated and things like that. And I think he's been a really fascinating character to watch over the course of this arc. And I don't know what to make of the the status of the satellites, the ones who we have lost so far. But very curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, Vegapunk has. I mean, that was one of the things that people were, making fan art about, entire memes based on like what Vegapunk will eventually look like, and that was more than what is it? Almost, was it 2006?
Was that when he was
6
first
would have been for the
mentioned?
first time. Yeah. The end of Water 7, so around 2006.
Whew.
So like almost, not
Almost 20
quite,
years,
but
yeah.
over 15 years
Yeah.
to his debut. So, and then the fact that he gets voiced by Rick in Japanese.
Yeah. It's almost too good. That was a big meme with the podcast too. Like they all wanted Vegapunk Rick. That was what they called him.
It's perfect.
Yeah, maybe not quite as cynical as
not quite. No, he's definitely not Rick, but like it is quite the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to Wisdom Pythagoras, who says, hello, Stephen and Greg. Hope all is well. I've been sitting on this question for a few months now, and I'm excited to finally be able to ask you two. So thanks for doing this again. All right, here we go. The official titles of the 5 elders were revealed in chapter 1089, and this is referring to their different, their
fields, right?
Yeah. Yes. But they were referred to as Bushin. And that I translated as Godhead, and I did go into a long explanation. He says, Stephen's explanation on the podcast for this decision over the use of something like warrior god or god of war made a lot of sense. That said, this title did remind me a lot of when Elbaf was referred to as Tatakai no Kami, or god of war, all the way back in Little Garden, chapter 111. 119. There's been some speculation that the celestial dragons may have appropriated certain aspects of their enemies' cultures and passed them off as their own. For example, perhaps calling themselves gods after displacing the Lunarians who lived in a land of gods atop the Red Line. I was wondering if this could be another instance of that, where the elders have been dubbed the warrior deities of their departments out of spite or pettiness over Elbaf and their values. Or am I off base with this, and is the difference in Bu versus Tatakai just more about a military thing versus a general notion of war or fighting, and cannot be equated? Thanks for your time. So
that is an interesting question.
It is an interesting question, yeah.
And something that I've had to deal a little bit with on some projects recently as well.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say so. That Wisdom Pythagoras did include the pictures of the scene from Elbaf where Dory has his sword, and he is he's referring to this is when he's marching off to battle with Brogy, and he's saying, this was the decision handed down by Elbaf, the Tatakai no Kami. And I would say that this, if you were to talk about the concept of warrior gods or gods of war, as exist in cultures all around the world, if you were to refer to them in Japanese, I would probably guess that maybe Bushin is more likely or more common.
Stephen, this is hilarious because
because
this is fucking amazing, and the timing on this, because where was I just? Hawaii. All right.
Hawaii, yeah.
Okay. Something I noticed the first time I stayed a year in Japan and came back to the States.
Mm-hmm.
First thing I noticed, then this is 20 years ago, was how much the proliferation of cell phones had hit the United States. Everybody had a cell phone in their hand. Like to me, it was like overnight. I left and I came back and everybody had a cell phone. Mm-hmm. This time going to Hawaii, and I know it's a little bit biased because it is Hawaii. So people are showing more skin. But the number of tattoos that I saw on people was, I was gobsmacked by the amount of tattoos that I saw. Mm-hmm. Like just tons of tattoos everywhere on people, and I could not believe it. Not like, oh my goodness, this is so horrible. Just like it was, everybody had tattoos. Mm-hmm. So I guess that, I don't know, like overnight to me. I guess I don't know if it was a Corona thing or what, but like it was an explosion, and all I could see were kanji tattoos
Yeah.
as far as the eye could see on Caucasians, and it was fucking hilarious because you see these things online, but like this is the first time I actually got to see this
In person.
this tomfuckery with my own eyes. And you see these like military dudes, like super buff and everything, and they've got like God, one guy on his calf had an enormous kanji that I'm sure he wanted to represent family because family is super important to him, but it was just ie, which means house.
House. Oh boy, yeah.
And one of the that was the best one I saw by far, but and Haruka was dying too. But like,
Oh yeah.
Another one we saw was literally senshin, or what was it, like tatakai kami, and I was just like, no, I was like, no, that like, and she's like, yeah, I get it, but like, no, and I was like, Bujin, right? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like Bujin being a god of war, and I do believe you are absolutely correct in that assessment that would be probably what they would call it.
Yeah.
Tatakai no Kami sounds like it could sound like you're awesome at battle, like you're a god at battle.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it comes across more as like a god of fighting or something. Like it doesn't sound like a proper term. It just sounds like a description of someone. So yeah, I think. And that's an interesting thing too, because I noticed that as well. I'd forgotten that little detail that they supposedly have a god named Elbaf, which is also the name of their country or their island or their territory. And so I kind of wonder, like, is that going to continue to be a thing? Was that kind of a one-off detail that Oda dropped and then kind of realized, like, oh wait, maybe I don't want to do this? I guess we'll find out when we.
I am fairly certain they have a system of gods.
Yeah.
It does seem very strong.
Right. And they talked in this arc, they've talked about, Joy Boy, Luffy taking the form of a god spoken of in Elbaf and stuff like that. So it does seem like we might find out about multiple gods
relating
there.
that back to the stars.
Yes.
That is interesting. Like, did they take it to spite? There are so many interlinked cultures here that somebody is appropriating somebody's culture. There's not enough locations. There's too much overlap. There are cultures that are being appropriated. There are terms that are being adapted by others and stolen by others. One of my thoughts was like the celestial dragons are like they worshipped dragons because dragons were at one point prolific, perhaps. They were an actual civilization that existed, and that's why like they quickly tossed all the Apis stuff under the carpet. They were like, oh, way too early for all of that. Sorry, forget all that happened. And my like Shonen Jump fanboy dream is that like the Pluton is a dragon flying ship. It's like the original dragon. And the celestial dragons saw these things and they were in awe of their power. So that's why like they have the hoof mark, and it took the name, obviously. That's been my whole thing. So I think that is quite clever. However, I have not taken the time to try and Tetris or Rubik's Cube everything out, like how it would work from one to another, and who would have had to have been here to take this. My only thought at this point is that the one hint to me is that who is it? It's Jay Garcia. Jay Garcia, how he addresses and talks to people at this point, and the whole like eye thing with his eye going feral. That they are something else, and I don't even know if they are human.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like I don't know if they were originally human or not. And did they actually come from those planets? Did they come from those planets to this place to get energy? Is that what they want? Are they just basically space pirates? Are they space pirates?
Oh, yeah.
Are they traveling from one planet to another to sap it of energy? Is that what they're doing? And since they bow down to Imu, then what the hell does that say about Imu? Like, where does Imu originate from, or what was Imu?
Right.
I think Oda is trying to get the quote unquote casual reader to believe that there is a strong possibility that Imu is actually Lily. Because I don't know if I'm. I read so much into stuff, and I'm not patting myself on the back. It's just how I read One Piece is a little bit different than others in terms of what I'm looking for.
Right.
And I think that he might be trying to get, especially from some of the responses I'm seeing from some of the Japanese blogs, is that I think he wants people to believe that Lily might be Imu. That thought never even entered my mind. But yeah, I think that you're definitely onto something. Whether it's exactly out of spite or not, I'm not sure. In fact, I don't think they'd feel that they'd need to spite, because they look down on people so much.
Right.
I think they're so far above. But there is something funny going on with the transference of the transference and the passing down of culture. It's quite odd. So I agree with that.
Yeah, that could be something that we learn more about as we hopefully kind of get into the topic of like what the ancient kingdom was and how that may have affected, the 20 kings and the kingdoms that continue to exist after the blank century. That could shed a lot of light. Good question. Hopefully that somewhat answered their concern. All right, this is a good one. Big Mike, I'm gonna describe first before I read the question. It comes with a screen cap of the lovely Mackenyu, our Zoro, in full costume with a subtitle of "Fucking Clown." And the question is: the live action series made use of the words "shit" and "fuck." Steven, does this mean you can now use these words when translating One Piece, or does Viz not let you use sailor talk in this pirate manga? Yeah, that's a good. That is very funny. But of course, yeah, no, we are. I think I have, and I don't know if this is a sign of anything changing or if it's just that. Like I'm sneaking them through more regularly. But I remember when I first couple years working on the weekly chapters, that like I couldn't use hell and I couldn't use damn. Like I could use damn it, like DAMMIT, but if I used damn DAMN, that would usually get changed in the editing sequence. And I feel like I've slipped a couple in recently. Where I felt it was appropriate. So there's probably been a little bit of a linguistic shift over the years, but by and large, yeah, I think we have a pretty large body of work of meeting a certain standard for cleanliness that is probably not going to change here.
I actually talked about the team about that one time, the amount of cursing in it. And I'm from New Jersey, so I have no issue with cursing. My whole thing is like, what does it do for ratings, right?
Right.
Like, how will that, and I don't mean the ratings, how many people see it, but I mean like the TV ratings. And like, stylistically, I think they, like, to the point of distraction, they overuse the word shit. It's just like so, there's one episode where Buggy says it, I think like 3 times maybe in like a 2-minute window, and it's just like, that's a little bit much. Like I don't care about cursing, but like I think you're overusing, you're trying to be edgy using it.
Yeah.
And if you use it that much, it loses the edge, actually, gyakuni. So like I loved the fucking clown line. Was a great throwaway line. That was hilarious. But I was also at the same time, it's just like, okay, but wait, hold on, Greg. How many like 80s movies did you watch that had like cursing when you were a kid? And people allowed it back then, like Ghostbusters and stuff, right? So
right.
I don't think. I mean, like the stuff that they were into regarding like what can and cannot be in it
Mm-hmm.
was so big that like they were so limited at one point, and then for them to just be completely free with the language was just like, wait, but you want to hold back that, but they can't curse. It was just weird. Now they're like cursing left and right, but you still can't do that. What? It's very interesting. The television process is unique.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that people are enjoying it. Although the amount of shit it was a bit much at some points.
Yeah. I have my own kind of complicated thoughts about that, I guess, which is, I guess it just pretty much comes down to like, yeah, I wish they I wish they had toned down the show a little bit, and I wish that we could tone up the manga a little bit in certain areas. There's probably a comfortable middle ground where I feel like, everything matches, but there's definitely a temperature difference, especially in the East Blue material from the live action to the manga.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another big topic that encompasses many more people who have a say in the matter than just us. All right, SNP. Now this is a bit of a similar question to what we had earlier, but I think I can take it in a different direction here. So SNP says, "Hi, Stephen, Greg, Simba. This is a question for Stephen about your translating process regarding One Piece. When you're choosing a word for your OP translation, which one do you, I believe he means prioritize over the other, the word as close as possible to the Japanese, even though it might sound more fancy, or giving it a little more wiggle room but sound more natural? Or is it a mixing of both depending on who is speaking in that context?" So we did talk about, just the general philosophy of translating, and translating Japanese entertainment to English in particular. I would say that, like, unique to, or specifically regarding One Piece and my approach to it, is I would say that there are certain aspects of the translation where I am trying to be as close as possible to the Japanese, and there are other aspects where I am looser. And it usually regards like how unique Oda's text is. Every manga artist, every writer has like a certain mixture where you can look at the dialogue, and some of that dialogue is going to be just like stock phrases. It could be very like manga, it's very comic booky stuff, like all of the taunts that you make when you're fighting, like, yeah, I'll get a load of this, like try this on for size, blah blah blah, stuff like that, where it is very much like, okay, this is very tropey, this is very like any you could see this in any manga. And then there's going to be some lines that are unique where the author is inventing something. Like, you could take this phrase and Google it and you won't find any hits. It's something that the author made up. And it's unique to their mind. And Oda, I think, has a higher concentration of those than most, certainly most Shonen Jump artists, I would imagine. And there's lots of stuff where, he just writes it, and sometimes, your first glance at it, you're like, what is he saying here? Like, I don't even understand what Oda means by this. And you kind of have to mull it over, and there may not be like an obvious interpretation to it. It might be something that is kind of obtuse, and you're just sort of left on your own to decide what it means. And stuff like that is really tricky, but for that reason also, like, that's the kind of stuff that I really want to preserve. Like if I can look at a line and say, this is really unique, like this is an interesting piece of imagery or like comparison or whatever it is that Oda is doing with that dialogue, I kind of want to preserve it. And sometimes that goes back into what I was saying earlier about like sometimes the audience is going to be kind of left out by it, and there's a part of me that is okay with that happening, because this was something that Oda was doing. It's not necessarily a fault of translation. It's just, this is a difficult line, and Oda was going for something, and he knew that even in Japan, people were going to be confused by this or have a myriad of interpretations.
Yeah.
And that's okay for that to happen. Like, I don't have to be responsible for spelling it out or breaking it down to something that is a lot easier to process. And so that's where I tend to be a lot closer. I think when you do like comedy or things where it's obvious, like, okay, you know, or like a, you know, like a taunt or something where, you know, it's sort of like, this is where the real entertainment stuff is. I'm a little looser, you know, if I feel like I can get a little more juice out of it by, you know, tweaking it in a certain way, I might do that. But that's kind of how I break down, you know, whether to be faithful or, you know, natural or loose. So that's kind of how, you know, that's my view on it.
So, well, Stephen put that far more astutely than I could have ever brought it forth. I do agree with all of that. And if I can take just a slightly different angle, not even an angle, but just maybe an addition to thinking about that. Something that I also try to focus on is the artwork itself. Looking at the characters and their expressions and how they're drawn, how they look, how calm they are, how angry they are. Is the character they're looking at, is that how they normally look when they're interacting with them? If they're looking at them, or if they're angry at a character they wouldn't normally be angry at, well, then does that change what they're saying? Those are all kind of, and this is all, I don't mean to sound like I do such a good job. This is all basic stuff that we should all be doing. But that is just the kind of thought process that I think not just me, but all translators go through or should look at, is also the artwork. It's not just what's on the paper. It's not just what's in the text box.
Right.
It's also how the artwork is being displayed, and how the text can also augment that artwork. Especially, oh God, Oda's a great example of this. The use of exclamation marks. That is something that he deliberately counts out and doles out, to the extent that there are still only two instances in the series where there have been 5 exclamation marks used in succession. So those are the kind of things I look at. Like, yeah, let's say I can't use 5 exclamation marks because Viz won't let me.
Right.
It's just not professionally speaking, it's not something they allow on an editorial side. I do try to make cases for them, especially when I was doing Dai. I tried to make a lot of cases, and I won a couple over. I won over the editor in a few. But it's okay if this has an extra number of exclamation marks. Well, then this line should carry more weight than anything has before. So it needs to be iconic, and then you'll spend time thinking about, well, what would be iconic in English as compared to Japanese? Does that need to change anything? And hopefully you don't change anything. You're able to find a suitable synonym precisely for what you're looking for that fits the case. But artwork is also a major part of doing that.
Yeah, actually, to go off of that, you know, you talked about Dai being from the early 90s, late 80s, and I do not say this to slight it or to denigrate it at all, but I think, you know, pretty much anyone would agree, if you look at it, like his characterization, the way he draws characters is very corny. Like they're always mugging, they're always making huge expressions, and it is kind of a cheesy manga in many ways, and that's part of the charm of it. And I think, you know, that can affect your decision-making process when you're like, okay, well, how do I represent this character's line here? Like if if they look too goofy for it to be something that sounds really hardcore, sometimes that'll push you into a different direction with a line, or will kind of funnel you towards a certain answer in ways that for a different manga you might do something completely different.
Yeah.
All right. Last
Great
question
again. Fun
yeah.
question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Last question on our Patreon from Vinny C. Doc Feelbad, who says, "Hello, SGS. Something I've been wondering since the most recent chapter came out, and something that I assume will be answered very soon. Do you think that the sinking of the world is intentional by the world government, or is it something that simply benefits them and that they would not have the power to stop even if they could? And if you haven't spoken more about it already, what do you think the cause of this is? And do you think the One Piece will be vital in reversing this?"
Okay. That's a big question.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So I'm sorry. What was the first part again? I was busy thinking about the second part.
Yeah. Do you think that the sinking of the world is intentional by the world government?
All right. Thank you. No, I say that hesitantly, but no, I guess I don't think so. Just because they seem scared of it as well. I mean, that's why they're living up on Red Line, right? I mean, Red Line serves as a beautiful literal wall for Oda to keep his story. I mean, that's how we looked at it for years and for decades, literally, is, yes, the gates are large because Luffy can't stretch to the top, right? And the wall is large, so Luffy can't stretch to the top. Or you get somebody like Kaido, it's just like, yeah, he's super tough, but like it still would take him time even to fly up to the top. It's just it's a literal barrier for the story, but it also serves the purpose of being an incredibly high location that buys them time to suck this planet dry or to use its resources to whatever ends they want. So I do not think it's intentional. I don't think they'd be here if they didn't have to be. I think that's part of why they're trying to use all these things, is because they need a energy source to get out of Dodge. That's why they're using Vegapunk. But yeah, I think that's pretty much what we're looking at. Well, how great would it be? I'm sorry, but how awesome would it be? And when the backbenchers steal this from me, I need to remember that I said it in this podcast.
Okay.
As they do.
All right. May 6, 2024. Yeah. Hearing this for the first time.
How great would it be if it turns out that Emu actually is an alien and these are space pirates, and you have Oda with the alien head in the photo on volume 1 in the inner flap? How perfect
with the mask,
would that be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And also in volume 11, in the Logtown, when Zoro enters the sword store, when there's a little poster on the wall that says, "Is he a gray?" And gray meaning the gray alien, they call it commonly in Japanese. So, I mean, intentional or not, other like, oh, he was planning it the whole time. I don't know about that, but like, it would be interesting. It would be a funny coincidence.
Yes, it would. Yeah, I don't know. Is it intentional? Yeah, I think I agree with you that I don't see a good reason for them to want to do that. And I'm not sure. I mean, given their conversations about the mother flame, like having this energy source, and which presumably goes with that they're using to power the flying whatever it is that destroyed Leloucia. It seems to me more like they are trying to take advantage of a bad situation or something like that. I don't see at least at this point, I don't see a good reason for them to be doing this intentionally.
What is the source?
Yes. What is the cause?
What the frick is the source? I forget if we talked about this, I've been talking with a couple people, and I have not done a deep dive on what is possible, but I've just been kind of casually thinking about what could cause this. And I think I did a little bit of discussion. This is Discord. That's where it was. Yeah. So something hit me as weird, and I think a number of people caught on to this as well. Like, why would destroying an island and essentially making a hole, or a quote unquote hole in the ocean, why would that make water levels rise? Like, that seemed like a very strange detail to add. Something felt off about it. And sure enough, we find out that yes, it's water levels are actually rising, and this world is supposedly sinking. Does it sink the number of times that this device is used? Is there something with the destruction of an island that makes that occur? I really don't know. I don't know if it's a happy coincidence, or if whatever is the act of destroying that pillar of land affects whatever is doing this to the world, right? Like, water's not coming up out of the hole. It's flowing into it, supposedly endlessly. And my idea back in NES Lobby was that the water that flows into that hole is coming out the spout in Water 7. And originally I thought that's how they were going to get out, is everybody jumps into the hole and they get shot back up into Water 7. I thought that was a really good idea. That was up there with my like Leo defeats, or helps defeat. Doflamingo.
Doflamingo,
yeah. But it was not to be. Much better ending than what I thought it would be. But why is that occurring? Why does it seem to have occurred in the past? Are they related? They seem to be related. They happened in such close proximity, story wise.
Yeah. Well, and also I was mentioning this too, because that it was a scene back earlier in the arc where it specifically says that 6 days after Lucia, you have this earthquake that hits all over the world, and that causes the 1 meter rise, and they lose beaches and things like that. You see some of that, the scenes of that happening. Right. And that made me curious too, because it wasn't like, oh, the same day there was a big, because then you could just say, oh, well, clearly that was, the quote unquote earthquake was just a tectonic reaction to the laser, blasting the island out of existence. But 6 days is a very long time. And maybe it is just, okay, that's how long it takes for there to be a counter, a reaction to it. But I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, it's my thought is that there is some ancient devil fruit tomfoolery at work here, because it seems like a fantastic element. How could you be losing water, like literally losing water, and yet having earthquake? Well, I'm trying to think of geologically, if that much water flows into the earth, is it actually is it covering the magma? The magma's solidifying, and then it reaches a point where, oh God, what happens? Where the water seeps into the earth, literally the crust, and displaces the plates, causing these kinds of earthquakes. Like is opening, are they related in the fact that is opening the hole then creating this kind of issue where the earth is literally falling apart? It's continually flowing in, being absorbed, loosening, because that actually happens. That's how landslides happen in Japan. They talk about it all the time. During heavy rains, you can easily get a landslide because it seeps into the lower earth, and the loose earth on top falls over it.
Right.
So is that happening? But why would water be coming up? It's still like, well, is it sinking? They say water levels rising, but is it actually sinking? I don't know. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Are the plates sinking, or is the water level rising? That's kind of like the question, right?
Yeah.
And
if the water level is rising, I'm sorry, but if the water level is rising, I see devil fruits involved, because it seems. I know Oda has his crazy science, and I respect it and love it, but it just seems too fantastic to have that much water being created without millions of years of rain. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think I was just going to say, we do have several, aspects or instances of, Oda kind of having his own crazy science. The the knock-up stream, I think, is a great example of that, of something that, like, if you actually think about it in the way that he presents it, no, it doesn't make any sense, but it's, it's fantastical. It's whimsical in a way. It's really cool. It makes for great comics. There certainly could be some explanation along the lines of what we're suggesting, even if even if the scale or the actual science of it doesn't math. I think he could easily have an explanation like that. And we just don't we don't have Vegapunk around today to tell us. We only have this video that he's saying. But I don't know, maybe we'll get some more about that through him that way. Yeah, I don't know. Do you think the One Piece will be vital in reversing this? I mean, if this is an extinction level threat, I certainly would not be surprised if whatever the One Piece is, it does have some ability to stop this. But again, it's also hard to say without knowing what this is, what that might be.
I do not think that the One Piece will be involved in stopping it per se, but I think that what they are going to do in order to accomplish their goals to the end of finding One Piece will help them alleviate the issue.
Okay.
And I say alleviate because I'm not sure if they're going to entirely fix it. I don't know if it will have that kind of ending. Like,
right.
We don't know that the Earth is. Well, this is why. Okay, if I can be completely blunt about this, I was not super excited about the Earth is sinking aspect. I know a lot of people were like, "Whoa!" I was like, "Okay, interesting," but I need to know more in order to be excited about this. And one of those aspects was I need a timeline. I don't feel like this is an immediate threat yet, because we know that this world has existed for a very long time.
Right.
And okay, so sea levels rose. Like that's scary. Like there was devastation. There absolutely were like small islands that were lost in this. Yes. But what timeline are we looking at? Like, are we talking thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years? A week from now? I mean, if I don't have that knowledge, then I can't be like, all right, let's go. The Straw Hats need to save the world.
Right.
We know that they need to free the world. We don't know that they need to quote unquote save it from a disaster of this aspect so far. So I don't know about that. If One Piece does end up going to space, like I believe in some terms, I do believe it will, then this could be something that is actually left not hanging. It will be dealt with, but it could be a threat that is, our world is free. And now we need to make the next step. We need to make the next journey, into the next place, into the next world, so to speak. So it could be a looming threat. Whether it gets solved or not, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I think that the way that he revealed it as like, Vegapunk basically just cutting to the chase and saying, all right, let's start with the conclusion. The world is sinking. It was definitely designed to get that sort of like, sorry, I'm going to date myself again. The Tim the Toolman Taylor, like, sort of response from the audience of like, what does that mean? So it's like you don't even know how you're supposed to feel about it almost. So yeah, I think mission accomplished, I guess I would say, in that regard. All right. Now we don't have a ton of time left before you're hard out. So let's see if we can get through. We have some questions on Twitter as well. which I will get right into. This one is from NBS Lobby on Blue Sky, at NBS Lobby. That's the name, at NBS Lobby. Do you guys think that the rising sea level will finally lead to the meeting of Cricket and Wiper? Will love bloom between these two beautiful hunks of men, much like it did with their ancestors in centuries past? Will I finally get all of my yaoi fanfic material directly in the manga from Oda himself? Please tell me, Stephen and Greg. I have to know. Please, please, please.
Boy, if this were 10 years ago, I could have been super nerdy about this and answering this super well. Because I used to know the exact height of Skypiea. And we also, I believe we have an exact height for Redline as well. And I'm trying to think, like, if the sea level, if Redline, if Marijua actually is the same height as Skypiea, then does that mean that if the sea levels rose up to that point, where would they actually be at level with Skypiea? But I don't think they're quite that high. Okay. And unfortunately, if the sea levels ever did rise that high, unless Oda has some amazing devil fruit power up his sleeve, the world is basically gone at that point. So I think they'd have bigger things to worry about than being than making old promises come true. But absolutely, yes, I believe they will meet again. That is without question. It has to happen by the end of the series. They're going to do the Arnold Schwarzenegger Predator.
Yeah.
That is a great observation. That does need to happen. I just don't think in that way.
Mm-hmm. Sure. MH at Dapper Steve says, appreciating contractual obligations and NDAs, etc. So we'll see how much you can say here. At a general level, do you have any feelings on differences between working on season 1 and working on season 2 as of yet?
At this point, like, it's so early and nobody's really saying anything. Like, even the official account is just, they're not so much as teasing. Just the other day they had Iñaki with the
cake,
with the cake, the 3 candle, which ended up to be the 3. So at this point, probably the less said, the better. Keep myself out of trouble on that end.
Yeah.
But I do apologize for that. But I mean, as you can see, they are hard at work on making it happen. So please do look forward to that.
I think there are little hints here and there that they've been cheeky about dropping that will probably tell you, at least what to expect in terms of material. All right. Pow at Pow Huilatini says, hope you're both doing great. I've missed your speculation on the chapters. Talking about that, which islands were the world government trying to connect with that big bridge in Tequila Wolf? Any ideas? Keep up the great work. Boy, they better finish that bridge quick, because it's not going to have much use at this point.
Yeah, that bridge is fascinating. The bridge is one of those things that's like, Oda knows. I don't think it's something that he just threw out there. There's a lot of stuff that I think he throws. He's like, this is a cool idea. I don't know how I'm going to use it, but like, let's put it out there. Tequila Wolf is a massive concept in terms of what it means for the story and what it means for the people in the world. That is an incredible investment. Granted that it's quote unquote free labor, but the amount of materials being utilized for that are staggering. Just think about getting into the ocean bed, those pillars and everything. Right. It's unthinkable. And to think that this construction has been going on for this long. I've tried long and hard. Sometimes I'll try to say, like, I'll qualify myself and say, like, I haven't given this a lot of thought, but from the hip. But no, this is something I've actually sat down and tried to think about what it could possibly be for. And I'm sorry, I do not have any really good, solid ideas.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard anything, Stephen, or if you've come across, but like I haven't heard any theories for it that I particularly enjoy. I have certainly have not come up with anything myself. Why, if you have flight, then why would you even need this? And we know that flight does exist in this world. What? And the only thing it can come down to is that it's for a resource, for an ease of transporting a resource. And why would you spend generations trying to get a bridge to get an ease of resource when you actually have flight? I don't know what it means. Is there a place that they need to get to in times of danger or something like that? Are they anticipating, when are they future proofing something about the world? To be able to get to, like, I don't know, what does it connect to? Maybe the highest point on the world from like Marijoa. Does it connect to Marijoa? I forget if we even know where it connects to.
Yeah, I don't recall. I guess I'll find out when I hit that point in my my read through this year. But yeah, I've always kind of, in my mind, it's an interesting timing for this question, because in my mind, this concept kind of goes into the same category of things like Enies Lobby itself, both the endless hole and also the never night concept of like the sun is always shining on it. So where it's just sort of like a fantastical concept that is not explained in the story, at least until now. Of course, now we have some reasons to consider these topics again. And am I remembering this correctly? Was Egghead said to be a always daytime island as well, or something? I thought there was something.
Yeah, did that come up,
or was it
again? This is me recent chapters, not rereading as much as I did, but like I think you're right.
And so like, yeah, like the idea of like the giant bridge that has been built forever that seemingly connects nowhere to nowhere. It's a great like short story concept, or some, just some kind of abstract absurdity. But the fact that now we are questioning some of these seemingly impossible things, maybe that it will have a rationale soon, which is exciting to think about. I mean, but no, I don't really have any, I have not, for my part, seen any theories or anything that I'm like, oh, that makes sense. It has to be that.
We don't know what the status of the former land of Lucia is yet, right? We've not been back there. If it is daylight there as well, then the link to the Mother Flame is at this point it's a given, right? You have a hole in the ocean where Enies Lobby was. It looks very similar to the hole that was left by the Kingdom of Lucia.
Right.
It is always daytime there.
Right.
Always daytime at Egghead, where the flame is kept. Geez, I mean, come on. It's pretty much it, which would suggest that it drops a part of itself in that location. So somewhere down in the center of the earth is a part of the Mother Flame, I think, right? Yeah. And is that also part of what's causing it? The more I think about this, the water leaching into the earth kind of idea, I like it because it helps explain why the hole doesn't fill, is because it's slowly filling the earth. Literally,
Hollow Earth?
Hollow Earth. Oh my God. But it would be slowly filling. And, if you have something that's the size of a planet, how long would it take to leach into the earth and the core, and then unsettle the ground so that it literally sinks? I mean, that would explain also the earthquake as well. If he wants his pseudoscience explanation, that would be it. Is it eliminates a part of the earth, it leaves a trace of itself behind, the water flows in, leaches in, and is literally flooding the earth. So when they used it, they basically would have doomed the earth when they used this device originally, which is why the ancient weapons would be forbidden, yeah? Because when they did that initially, it did doom the earth. And it would take hundreds of years to enact and to take to place, but that is what it would have been. Yeah, if we find out that it's daytime in Lucia now 24/7, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that would certainly connect a lot of dots. Well, there you go. Some food for thought as we wait for the next chapter. I think we have 2 more questions here. Now,
Great.
this is a really good one. Gabe Ruiz at Gabe Ruiz 9 says, "Hi Sensei, sorry if this has been asked before. What's the deal with the mysterious narrator in the series? Is it just a device Oda uses to tell the story for foreshadowing moments, or will it actually turn out to be a character like Sabo, whose dream was to write a book?" We've definitely discussed this before on the podcast. Where people tried to. I know Usopp has been a popular theory of like after the doing like the Lord of the Rings thing and writing about his adventure after it's happened, sort of dealy.
Here's my most unsatisfying answer. Right. People hate this. People who know Buckle me hate up. This answer. Yeah, it can be whatever Oda wants it to be.
Yeah, well, sure.
If he initially didn't have any idea for it, and he was just like, it's the narrator,
right?
Then that's that's what it was. If he gets to the end and he's like, oh, I have actually a perfect idea for this, I can use it in this way, then that's what he'll do. But it can go any way, because the man will literally be at the week of the chapter, at the end of the chapter, and say, oh, you know what, I got a really good idea, let's change all this, or like, I don't know, I have no idea what I'm going to do next week.
Right.
There are a couple instances of that, and it's not like major major main story plot kind of things, but it's something that happens, and who the narrator is would be cathartic. It's not super important. In other words, like, people would be, if he turned it out that like the end of the story is the advanced fish person is like fish people that look like the Nami mermaid that Luffy drew. Like Oda was actually like, that's the future, and everybody in the future looks like that, and it's Oda telling the story because he always draws himself with a fish head. Right. Like he could do that if he wanted to, if he feels that it makes enough of an impact or would be fun for the readers. But as there, which is a long way to say it's anybody's guess, and the possibilities are literally endless. I cannot put my foot down and say that it should be this, or it will be this, or it could be this, because it could be anything. I really don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there's a poetic aspect to the narration at times. Like he will flex his literary muscles, especially when we're at the end of an arc or at the beginning of an arc, and he's trying to kind of leave you or bring you in with a certain feeling, and that is always an interesting change from the usual, but he's never really infused it with something that I would consider like a particular character voice, other than just itself, as a kind of omniscient narrator. I don't recall any like, oh, this is what do they call it? Like an inconsistent narrator, or whatever that term is for that, where you can't necessarily trust what the narration is telling you. I don't think that really applies to this. So my usual boring answer is that it's Oda himself, but as Greg said, he could absolutely just decide on the day of that, and it's this character who's writing the story of One Piece at the end.
One of the few examples I can think of where it sounds omniscient is where Blackbeard beat Ace, and I think it says like this was the trigger for the big for a change that would
Right.
rock the world. And there've been a handful of them, so it does sound omniscient, like it can be somebody who has knowledge of what happens at the end.
Right.
But I mean, there's a reason we called them Oda boxes for so long, is because it sounds like Oda telling his story.
Right. Yes. I mean, in the meta sense, of course, it is all Oda, because that's what he's doing. He's telling us a story. All right. Last question we have here on Twitter from Joyo Boyo at Joyo Boyo Gomu, who says, "Hey, OPP, my question is this. We've seen how all the exterior storylines in the arc have tied back to Egghead, Shanks and the Giants, Blackbeard's crew, and Sabo's adventure at Marijoa. The only storyline that has not been connected is Buggy's. How does the Cross Guild tie back to the arc?" Oh boy.
This is another unsatisfying one. It's how can he use it? Does he need to use him here? I mean, you've noticed a pattern, which is fantastic, but taking a step beyond just noticing the pattern is it a rule? Must it be a rule? And Oda does not like to as soon as readers know what he's going to do, or see that he's established a pattern, he will drop it. Usually, I'd say majority of the time, he'll drop it. The numbered chapters, right? Like first person, second person, third person.
Right.
Like readers are like, oh, so that's what he's going to do every time. And he was just like, oh, wait, they're anticipating that? Well, let me weigh the instances. Like, if they know what I'm going to name a chapter each time, then it's not fun. And that's kind of why that got dropped. Because people were waiting for that chapter as confirmation instead of waiting for the story to unfold. So would Buggy appearing here, does that need to be a rule just because it's a pattern? I'm not sure about that. But noticing patterns is the first step, and that's cool that you brought all of them together. I'm not sure that he must bring it, tie it into what's going on, though. That said, since we're funneling down the amount of threads in the story, the main threads in the story, it would not be outside the realm of possibility for whatever Buggy is up to being important, even if tertiarily, to what's going on right now at the end. If we don't just simply catch up with him after the arc ends, mercifully, finally. I think that's where we're heading. Is Buggy and Cross Guild can be tied in more to what's coming down the line rather than what's going on right here at the same time, or what will be affecting here at the same time. Similar to how Kobe and Garp and Blackbeard did over on their part of the story.
Right.
I think it will come in at the end. I don't think it necessarily will relate to what's going on right now. I hope I answered that well.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, if you were going to go with like wrong answers only, the answer would probably be by accident somehow. I mean, that's just classic.
Yes.
Classic Buggy. Yeah, I really don't know how to one up that. So yeah, that's an interesting observation. I do agree, though. I do think that he is, it's stuff that Oda has been doing constantly throughout this arc of kind of keeping us in the loop of what other kind of major factions and important characters are doing, and some of them have been directly related to Egghead itself. Some of them are more presumably to do with Elbaf or, whatever mad dash for the One Piece will happen after/during Elbaf, with the other emperors and such. So he's definitely going to keep those guys around for that. And I think we are through all of our questions, and the timing could not have been more perfect, I believe. So why don't we thank you all, of course, for your questions. You can always write in if you are a patron. Look for if you are not registered already on Discord. You can get in touch. There's some resources on there of how to get connected so that you have access to the Patreon section. And we do have an SGS channel there where you can ask your questions at any time, or you can use the hashtag SGS Sensei, or just reply to our the One Piece podcast tweets or what have you, with your questions, comments, and theories. And with that, I think we will take a quick ad break and round out the show. This has been the One Piece Podcast, episode 816 for the week of Monday, May 6th, 2024. Man, that was satisfying. That was fun, getting to go through all these questions. We had some good...
You know what was really nice?
What's that?
Not having to go through the chapters.
Yeah.
That sounds so bad, but you don't understand. It's so like every time we take so much time doing
it. It is
that.
true. Yeah.
Yeah. That was very nice, and we got to address quite a few issues, as Stephen predicted early on, just through the questions themselves.
Yeah, we
that are relevant to
we covered it all.
The chapters.
So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thank you all for your questions. We'll try not to leave you hanging for 4 months or however long it was, 3 months, I think, next time.
Yep.
But yeah, I think we should be back next week, the regular podcast, as Shonen Jump returns. We will get the next chapter of One Piece, find out some more about what Vegapunk is talking about. But until then, Greg, where can people find you and what you're doing?
I'm over on Twitter at Ochimusha108. And I'm also on the official One Piece homepage with my articles and columns in Japanese and English. That's one-piece.com. And also have some articles in V-Jump. And you can enjoy the live-action One Piece series now streaming on Netflix that we worked on very hard for 6 years.
Yeah. Not 6 years for the next one.
Nope. Not even close.
That is thankful. All right. And you can find me. I haven't actually mentioned this in a while because I don't use it. I am technically my account is still active on Twitter at Translatosaurus, but I do not actively tweet. I just browse now. But if you are curious about my usual occasional posting and pictures of the One Piece scenes that I'm reading and offering silly comments on, I am active over on Blue Sky at stephenpaul.bsky.social. And I am right in the middle of Enies Lobby right now, so that's where my reread has me. So you can enjoy some of those comments and pics and whatnot over there. Please follow me if you are curious to see that. I think that's about it. We'll have the regular cast and crew back next week for another episode of the One Piece podcast.
Hey, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, awesome. Let's do it again.
Aloha.